Given my experience with 2020 so far, I don't believe that Tywin will believe the White Walkers are real until he is raised as a white himself.
Hey everybody, and welcome to a very exciting episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, reading A Storm of Swords. As always, I'm your host, Zach, sitting here in this booth with me, my brother Nate.
What up? And for the first time ever, joining us on a regular episode, not a special designated episode, is our friend all the way from Planetos Podcast, Micah.
Micah!
Welcome, Micah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. I'm Micah. If you, like they said, I'm one of the co-hosts over on Planetos Podcast. We do a lot on minor characters, houses, and various special things throughout Planetos. I'm also on Twitter mostly and chatting on there about Song of Ice and Fire and mostly minor characters. That's my settled brand on Twitter.
We're very excited about that, as that's been one of our highlights for this reread, has been kind of focusing on a lot of characters we didn't pay as much attention to the first few rereads. So having someone that's a little more knowledged on those will be great to add some insight.
Micah's downplaying it as well. There's also a great theory that you wrote, that you posted on Reddit, about Sir Hyle Hunt, Jaime Lannister, and Lady Brienne. That's it's absolutely one of my favorite theories going into Winds of Winter concerning that group, because there's so many questions about who we're going to see it through and who's going to be important. And I've been rereading it in preparation for doing the podcast with you today, and man, it's still one of my favorite theories that Hyle Hunt is going to step up and be the champion that we might not deserve, but the one that we need right now. But
thanks, dude.
Absolutely. That's great. We're just honored to have you here. So today, if you joined us last episode, we were reading Sam 1.
So to give our normal intro, as you're jumping ahead, he's so excited.
I am so excited.
If you have joined us before,
spoilers.
Thank you for coming back. We very much so appreciate you listening. If you have not been here, we are full spoiler. We talk about the entire series as a whole. So if you do not want to be spoiled, go finish that. Come back. We'll be here waiting. If you don't care if you're spoiled, fuck it. We're here.
Yeah.
We're waiting. Do what you got to do. So, with that in mind, last episode, we were reading Samwell 1 from Storm of Swords.
Micah may not have just read Samwell 1, but I'm sure
I read it somewhat recently.
Hey, perfect.
Banger of a chapter. Banger.
Right? That's the funny thing, is I realized how big of a doucher I was the first time I read through, because I hated it. I hated that chapter when I was just reading for content and to finish the book. When I actually reread it, that's possibly one of the best chapters we've gotten in A Song of Ice and Fire, of Sam fleeing the fist of the First Men. So, and the first killing of a White Walker. We get to finally see one of these things die in front of us, which is just mystical in its own right.
Right. So we get a lot of cool stuff there from Sam. His, as Zach mentioned, the fleeing of the Fist of the First Men. We get to see Small Paul accidentally leaving some traces that they were planning a mutiny. He loses his life, and Sam picks himself back up and gets ready to rejoin the group. But this episode, we are not reading Samwell.
No.
We are reading Tyrion down in King's Landing, way down south. Tyrion 3, right. And
last we had left Tyrion, he was setting up a meeting via Varys to meet with Shae, although his original intent was to be sending her away. He was thinking a little bit more with his dick than with his brain, and did not end up doing that, and kicked himself for it. And I was pretty vehement in the last couple chapters about my dislike of Shae in this book specifically, just due to, I think she stopped being a good player of the game and ended up really just showing her naivete. But Shae's a divisive character in the fandom anyway. So this chapter, however, we are picking up with a small council meeting. And what a council meeting it is. This whole chapter is insane in setting up the end of this book, the rest of this book, and further and beyond that with the lords we get. So Tywin is walking in, greeting Lords Tyrell, Redwine, and Rowan. He kisses the High Septon's ring in Cersei's cheek, clasps Pycelle's hand, and then seats himself in, of course, the seat of power at the head of the table, the king's seat. Where's Joff?
He's probably off fucking around, shooting rabbits or cats or something, like a jerk like he is, but...
Or he got sent to bed early.
Right,
right, without dinner. Tyrion just thinks here, too many strange faces, too many new players of the game. The game changed while I was in bed rotting, and no one's going to tell me the rules here.
And that's what's really cool, is a lot of these characters we've heard a lot about throughout the first 2 books, but this is the first time we're getting to meet them. And in this capacity, it's a really neat way to have them introduced at a small council meeting with Tywin, this High Lord that we know to be as powerful as he is, both on the battlefield and in the, the rooms back here, doing what he's doing right now.
We get to meet a whole slew of new players here. I think it's interesting we could see a sort of echo of this bit in the future when Tyrion comes back to Westeros. The small council will be even more different when the Lannister and Tyrell regime gets uprooted by Aegon.
Right.
Absolutely.
more strange faces, more.
And actually, I was
players.
thinking about that as I got towards the end of the notes of this chapter, is how much this reflects Catelyn's previous chapter when Robb is arriving back in Riverrun, where they've got all these predetermined plans. Kevin and Littlefinger, with having Littlefinger heading out to marry Lysa Arryn, similar to how Robb and the Westerlings had it all pre-planned, how they're going to force Catelyn to be forgiven for freeing Jaime, just to not allow her to guilt Robb for marrying and forsaking his vows. And so there's these plots behind the scenes in both of these situations here, these little small councils.
And both councils involve the Westerlings, damn it.
Westerlings.
Tyrion is still super resentful of Renly's ghost, which, bro, he's a ghost, come on. And the small folk who cheer him, thinking, I don't get credit for my chain. The lords were jovial enough to Tyrion, but Sir Kevin's the only one who actually is kind to him, which I heart Kevin so much. Tyrion asks after Lancel's wound, and Lancel's health is flip-flopping right now. Some days he's great, and some days he's not so great. But Cersei, man, ever-faithful Cersei, has been by his bedside.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping his spirits up. Yeah.
Making sure he's okay.
Right.
And
that's the kind of person
definitely see some foreshadowing for a probable event in Winds.
Right.
Here.
Yeah. Even Tyrion wonders, is she there hoping he's gonna live or gonna die? Because now that Dad's here in the city, she definitely doesn't want to be screwing around with that.
Yeah, he even considers here, is she capable of doing that? And I'm actually surprised that he would ask that, because of what we've seen already. Why would you think she couldn't do something like that? She sent people out to assassinate baby bastards. So, of course she's going to be willing
I think he still believes it at this point, but that was...
It could just be due to Kevin being in the area.
True.
Kevin and Tywin both being there would probably make her a little bit more antsy about...
It's a very bold thing to try.
It is very bold when they're there.
Absolutely.
That's a good point with Kevin being in the city. I didn't even think that. However, today she's all charm. She's, shaking the right hands and saying the right jests and even trying to bring a smile out of Lord Rowan. And he's she's so good, man. She's so good at being the one you love to hate in the book, who thinks she's a major player, but you've got someone like Littlefinger, and Littlefinger's doing what he's doing in this chapter, where he's setting up him and Sansa, a couple months down the line yet. He Joffrey's wedding already signed, sealed, delivered. That I got my alibi, I got the Merlin King ship that I'm gonna get on. I won't be in the city. That's handled, and then Sansa's gonna be mine because I already swept that under the rug. And Cersei sitting here flirting, and because to Cersei, that's her weapon. I can use my feminine wiles, and she has so much more. When we look at someone like Sansa, you have so much more at your disposal to use, and Cersei's such a one-track horse. It's the same tactic that she wants to use over and over and over, and eventually the High Sparrow and her catches up to her with the Kettle Blacks. But
Yeah, so they bring up, she asks if they want to start with the wedding, but Tywin's more interested in the war. Which leads Varys to, he announces that he has some very delicious information for you all. And I just love the way he phrases some of his words. Delicious news. Come on. But Randall Tarley has caught Robett Glover outside of Duskendale, got him pinned against the sea. And it's a big battle happened, and both sides suffered many casualties, but in the end, their side did prevail. And this leads to the news that Ser Mayo died.
Mayo's dead,
He's
man.
all gone.
You hate to see it.
You know, Helman Tallhart. And so that basically leaves almost no Tallharts left besides the
children.
second sons and sons, like all that.
Baron, Barina.
Fred's dead. He died up by Theon, and Leopold, I believe, got killed by Roose Bolton's men outside of Torrhen Square.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're just left with the kids.
F for respects, man.
They will make an appearance.
Just Baron and Barina left.
Yeah, and they end up
more.
fighting or siding with Stannis, I think, outside for the Battle of Winterfell or something.
No, they're just trapped in Torrhen Square with Dagmar Cleftjaw.
So
they're just chilling.
The poor Tallharts, man.
Yeah, they get a bad run
too. They haven't. But
yeah, the Glover and the survivors, bloodied, are making their way back to Harrenhal, but little are they expecting Sir Gregor to be thwarting their path, which, damn these Gregor traps, man. Like, he is just so sneaky and scary, just popping out. And
well, yeah, because we just got 2 chapters ago, was Arya's third chapter, where Harwin was explaining the trap that was set by Tywin, how Ned was supposed to be lured out and captured by the Sir Gregor, but instead it was Beric Dondarrion and the men. And yeah, he's always just these surprise ambushes, and
he's just in the trees all the time.
Yeah, which, like, how do you not see this guy? Like, it's I just picture this little tiny, like, ficus tree in a planter pot, and the mountain's just like right behind. Like, what's
huddled over it?
Yeah. It's funny that, like, it's such a big man, yet he's the one initiating these shock and awe tactics of go and just hit him hard and then retreat back into the woods. And it's awesome. He's Tywin's mad dog, but it's his brother that's called the dog. It's great. Littlefinger still points out here that, like, that defeat isn't Rob's. Rob's still undefeated in the field. So, like, what are we celebrating here? Robett Glover? Like,
yeah. It really calls into question how on wars like this, the leaders over there being undefeated, but there are also these other battles happening, and those ones can be wins or losses, but they aren't generally counted because the big heroes, they're keys.
Right. And what, like,
with the name.
To Robett Glover and his men, that was a life or death. That was a...
Well, and that's what's so crazy, and that's what, you know, highlights the Brotherhood Without Banners, and they're fighting for the small folk. They just said that on top of Tallhart there, Sir Helman, 1,000 of other men also.
Yeah, heavy losses.
Just, who cares, though?
Yeah, swept under the rug.
Just 1,000 that are just gone, and nobody's going to hear about them except for this small council now, because who really cares? They were just a bunch of lesser lords and small folk.
Oh, yeah, and especially in this chapter, it's the privilege we get the people just sitting here pushing specifically this council of pushing the pieces around, and we don't care. Like, these are the things we need to get done to secure our power. Little small folk be damned, anyone who goes against it be damned, and the privilege is on key from everyone. Tyrion, of course, seems sympathetic to maybe a first-time reader or someone who, I like Tyrion, but he's not at all here. He's privileged as shit. Mm-hmm. He's still resenting Renly's ghost because he's not getting, again, the attention he thinks he deserves. Move on, dude. The war is still being fought. Like, there's other things at play here, and it's just so fucked, this council meeting. I hate it.
And we got the Patriarch of the West and the Patriarch of the Reach, and they're both so utterly ingrained into the system. One a little bit too much.
Right.
And their lackeys are right there, and they are willing servants. Kevin Lannister will do whatever Tywin says, and Paxter Redwine will brown nose to whoever's in charge.
Yeah, Kevin as the little dog that everything Tywin says, Kevin is going to agree with.
See, that sucks because I love Kevin.
I do
love
really
Kevin
like
as a
Kevin as
character.
well, but I like Kevin once Tywin is gone and he's giving Cersei the shit she needs to eat because it's Cersei, and he comes back to the city and starts ruling in her stead, and then, as we know,
it doesn't
poor
last long,
Varys,
'cause-
or not poor
I'm
Varys,
not Kevin's
but-
fan, but
No, I see why. I
I'm other
understand
people's
why,
fans.
absolutely.
Yeah, no,
but
absolutely.
but in this chapter specifically, he might as well just be stooge number one because he's crowing all the crow that Tywin told him to crow, and even Tyrion mentions it. This is all for show. This is Kevin and Tywin discussed all the important shit that needed to be discussed, and they decided it beforehand. Now they just gotta coerce the lords into agreeing.
Yep, they got to see how the Tyrells react because now the Tyrells are in standing in King's Landing.
Right. And so they know Robb has retreated to River Run with all his plunder, abandoning all the keeps and castles he had taken in the west. And Sir Davin is now reforming his late father's army at Lannisport, where he will, once it's formed, join Sir Forley Prester at the Golden Tooth. And when Robb heads up north, they take River Run. They're going to hit River Run hard and fast. And they're questioning whether or not Robb will actually be going north. And the same argument that came up in Catelyn's chapter, you have to. You can't be a king and
Not
lost
have
your
a
home.
kingdom. Yeah, that's even
Yep.
Mason's saying, oh, that's what I would do. I'm definitely the guy that would do that kind of thing as
That's
well.
what I
Yeah.
would do.
I got a lot written on here for what Mace says in this whole segment of them discussing Robb going north and up until Tyrion suggests he himself fight. But that's when they discuss the Vale. But we got the Tyrells embody a lot of what Renly had, as in talking the talk, but not necessarily walking the walk. Although, to some extent, Renly probably would have tried to walk the walk a little bit, depending.
Yeah, just inherently the Baratheon nature in him. You know, he might not be as powerful in that type of move as Robert would be. He still is capable. He might not have been number one in every tourney, but he performed well in them, and so he definitely would have walked the walk better than someone like Joffrey, for instance, who just does nothing. He would have at least been out there with his men and showing, and been at the small council meetings even, and showing his face where it needs to be shown, making decisions that need to be made. Maybe not well.
So we see Mace bragging about using all of his forces to take Mo Catelyn. Like, he would take everyone and he would just go. He would do that in Robb's place. But would he actually do it? He's ambitious, but he's also very opportunistic. And he tries to put his foot into several different steps to maintain his power. So a show of speeches may do a lot, but with Mace, it's just hard to tell if he would actually do that, given his low record.
Even the Queen of Thorns, he's a puff fish. He puffs up, and whether or not, he's actually going to act is questionable. He even does it here with the Dornish. Like, oh, they don't have leave to walk through my lands. What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, what's he going to do?
You're going to march right now when your daughter, who you're complaining about them coming to her wedding, is getting married. You're going to just leave to go fight the Dornish? He comes off as a caricature here. He's the most animated at the table, where back in Clash, that would have been like Pycelle, the one puffing up, and since he's gotten his beard cut off and his manhood shamed a little bit, he's a little more timid. But it's now Mace has taken this role of the animated figure at the table who's that's what I would do. And Joffrey, and it's I got
so much on Mace coming up here in the next couple segments.
And Tyrion also just thinks Robb Stark has won more battles in 1 year than you have in 20. So, there's that.
And that leads Littlefinger to saying, so speaking of Robb Stark, it's kind of messed up that his man Roose Bolton is housing goats at my castle there at Harrenhal. Just referencing that Vargo Hoat is hanging out there with Roose Bolton.
There was an odd line here where Kevin clears his throat and changes the subject. And either of you, Micah or Nate,
I didn't catch that.
Did you either of you think that Littlefinger knows of the Frey Bolton alliance at this point? He knows that Harrenhal is under Tywin's control, and he's essentially saying, you're housing your goat what's in my keep. Like, you're using my keep.
He might not know. Because Littlefinger was still in Bitterbridge. He only just returned to King's Landing. And this would have been around the time Tywin starts to really get going with his plan to get the Freys to betray. So it's possible that as of this moment, Littlefinger doesn't know.
See, that was initially what I was, because he's been so busy with his own Dantos and the Bitterbridge and Lysa Arryn and the Eyrie. But the cough of Kevin really was like, why you...
Yeah, it definitely, it's right at a point where it seems like it's just a subject change. Like, all right, that doesn't even mean anything, because then he immediately goes into the bringing up Balon.
Right,
Greyjoy.
Yeah.
And so it seemed more to me like that's irrelevant at the moment anyway. Let's not discuss that stuff.
Could be.
But it also seemed like it could be at that perfect intersection where it's him going, actually, this is getting close to something that me and Tywin don't want anybody to know.
And this whole meeting, Baelish is just kind of walking around flicking like his beard at people, just like, ha 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 ha, I'm hot shit. I haven't had to step in Harrenhal, but I'm using that lordship to grant me, I'm the keys right here between my legs. Like, he's loving his shit right now.
I think it's less so he's doing it as much as it seems, and a lot of the fact that it is Tyrion's point of view, and he's also noting
that's
some
true
of
too.
those
Tyrion's
points of
super
time where he's like, oh, see, we're getting this, he's getting this opportunity because he's the Lord, and he's weaseling his way. And not that Littlefinger doesn't do that, but it's accentuated from Tyrion's.
Right. Well, Tyrion knows that Littlefinger is very schemy, so from his point of view, we would see a lot more of Littlefinger just kind of being like, haha, look at me, I'm so cool. Whereas if this was third person, we might not see so much.
Right. No, that's a good point. And actually, just to like with Cersei earlier, he's looking at Cersei and she's all charm, but Littlefinger he's zoning in on.
That's a good
analyzing.
point.
And that's good. That's the different level of players. So Kevin brings up that Balon Greyjoy has made an offer of alliance, and Tywin. Because Cersei asks on what claim does he presume to call himself king, and Tywin says by claim of dominion. He's got the neck by
conquest.
He's grabbing it. He's got the North pretty well held right now. So, at least respect the power that he does hold at the moment, and I like that Tywin at least points that out. He's got a good hold right now.
He's got something. He's got something. Will he be able to hold on to that?
Right. That's the big question.
This is a big thing that we see, I believe it's through feasts with Cersei, where she's constantly undermining or underestimating other people and what they actually have. And so seeing that, Balon has actually done this. This is something that he holds, and he has a claim at this point. Well, what claim does he have? And Tywin has to break it down for her. Well, he's got control of Winterfell. He's got control of Moat Caitlin. He's got the stony shore is all his. Boats are out here. He's ready to attack Lannisport at any time.
Even Highgarden if we piss him off,
That's what he has, and she needs that spelled out for her. She thinks she knows, but there's certain things that she's just jumping to conclusions on, and we see a lot of that in Feasts, I think, as well, with the High Sparrow, and he's on my side. I've got this control on the situation that I don't. So.
The terms would recognize his kingship, Lord Balon's, and give him everything north of the neck. And the Mace, and I think it was Rowan or Paxter, are for this. They're like, who would want the North?
They don't care. Paxter Redwine makes a comment that what is there past the neck but stone and snow? The people south have a stereotype of the Northmen being lesser than them. There's nothing but rocks up there. When, of course, farther past that, there's also ice demons. So what do they know?
Right, the one that just showed up last literal chapter.
Yep.
Yeah, and so and that's fun too to read this with that looming, knowing that Samwell Tarly just stabbed one and is now fleeing.
This even fits into how Paxter Redwine himself is about to find out just what other things there are in the form of Euron over in the Redwine Straits.
Right.
He's about to really encounter just how much they've underestimated the Greyjoys.
Yeah, I again, it just shocked me how quickly. I mean, I guess it shouldn't, because obviously the Southerners think themselves higher than the Northerners, but just how quickly they're like, yeah, screw it, give them that. And there's no thought of how weak that would make Joffrey's position. You're giving up half of your kingdom. Like,
Yeah.
you're no longer the 7 kingdoms. You're the end of the show. You're the 6 kingdoms. Like,
right.
and the North is bigger than the other 6 combined. The fact that they're just so quickly to be like, yeah, just do it. Like,
yep. As soon as Mace latches on, the others have basically no choice to.
Right.
It's how the Reach functions for the most part. It's like the West, where they have their huge patriarchal guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They can't or won't do anything against what he says because he's the one with the big seal.
Right.
So, of course, we get, as I said before, Paxter brown-nosing red wine. It's just constantly, or whatever Mace says, and Mathis Rowan is just in general, yeah, sure, whatever.
It's great that we get the West and his lackeys in his family, Kevin, Tyrion, Cersei, and then we get Mace and Paxter and Redwine. And the difference, the way the subtle tactics that each are using. Mace is loud and boisterous.
It's one of my favorite features of Storm and Feast. You get those parallels right there.
This chapter is just so good, every bit of it.
So Tywin kind of takes that into consideration, but doesn't actually reveal what he thinks about what they all put in on that, and instead mentions Lysa Arryn and the Vale. And
I thought it was significant that he mentions she's the sister of Catelyn Stark, who's the traitor of Eddard Stark. I took this to be, this is a loose end. If the Red Wedding's happening, we know Robb and Catelyn are going to be taken care of there. Sansa's married off to Tyrion. Lysa Arryn is the last Stark relation that might try to rebel against us and rally some sort of force. So what do we do with the Eyrie? And to me, it's more and more signifying that, like, Tywin is thinking he's got this whole situation on lock right now, and it's just, let's just finish up.
He's already thought all of this through.
Let's do the strands. We just got to tie up the little strands here, the Vale of Arryn and all the other things, and it's so good.
And again, he's already got it all tied up. He just needs to tie it up in front of
make
them.
the show
he
of
has
it,
to do
right.
it on the record, so that way they have that.
Yeah.
And of course,
Mace immediately comes out saying, well, just let her be. And he
has a line. He has a line: "Women have no stomach for war."
Right,
and as soon as he said that, I'm like, in this very same book, Daenerys takes over Slaver's Bay. So what does Mace Tyrell know?
right. Yeah, it's
similar to what Tyrion just said. Robb Stark won 20 battles in a year. What do you know, Mace? Just shut up.
And we have Asha, raiding up and down the north. Like, so many powerful women, and Mace Tyrell comes out with that stupidity. And
even when Tyrion barks back at him, and Mace is like, we know your worth, and no need to tempt fate. When Tyrion offers to go himself,
and even Tyrion's fought in more battles at this point.
And like here, this is a bit where we really see Mace Tyrell's true colors, and how, like, just a few minutes ago, he was admiring Tyrion's trick with the chain in the beginning of the chapter. He's like, that was a good idea. But now that Tyrion suggests he actually go fight, Mace is like, no. I'm the High Lord. I'm the one who goes out and does these things. I'm the one with the titles. I'm the one with the historical record, quote, end quote. And he believes that he's the Knight of Summer. He believes battle is something epic and just, that you go into, that the ones with the names and titles get to achieve. But we never really see that. And he's about to find that out in true form when he's going to face the Golden Company in the Winds of Winter.
It's amazing that he is the son of Helena Tyrell, because you would think, and that Marjorie is his daughter, because it's still, I guess, jury is out on Marjorie whether or not she's as big of a player as she could potentially be, but Olenna we know absolutely is, and the fact that he immediately just writes women off like that when having obviously Olenna hasn't ridden to war, but she handles herself. She is in the politics.
I'll be questioning whatever it was Mace had been doing all of his life if it turns out Willas is smart and book wary just an actual
Nate
decent
said
human
it
being.
the other day that because Tywin even says it that Willas is courteous in books, likes looking at the stars,
Yeah.
and Nate called him the High Garden Rhaegar. He's
just he's up there. He's a scholar. He's breeding.
I'm just wondering what Mace has been doing all of his life.
Right. what are you like? You have such a dynamic of power with the Queen of Thorns, with your daughter, with Lancel, with Highgarden as its own entity, and Mace Tyrell is not the man to be running the show here, but it is what it is. And so, yes,
well, we hit that Tyrion line that Micah just brought up,
right,
with him, being scoffed at by Mace for saying, "Give me some men, I'll go and handle the situation." Because he's thinking more out of revenge here, because he was kept up in the prison cell.
Of course, wants to pay off that promise.
Mm-hmm. Right. But that's where Mace delivers the maybe you should save that for someone more suited. Best not tempt fate.
I also noted here that in going up and sorting out Lysa, he thinks that he can think of nothing that he would enjoy more, except perhaps strangling Cersei, which I really like that, because we get mention of the Valonqar prophecy before it's the Valonqar prophecy of him strangling Cersei in the same chapter that Sybil Spicer comes up, and the origins of House Westerling, and potentially Maggie the Frog, and all of the fun things that involve Cersei.
Nice, juicy setup.
And so, the fact that Tyrion's already like, yeah, it'd be great to strangle her and just wrap my hands around her throat. It's
just
like,
before we get the first
George.
mentions of the daughter of potentially Maggie the Frog.
Right. And so it's brilliant stuff. And he Tywin says he has other tasks for Tyrion. You're not going to the Eyrie, right? I believe Baelish holds the key to the Eyrie, and Littlefinger, of course, does.
Yeah, right here between my legs. Yeah, fucking getting all crazy.
He'll woo her and wed her and bring them the veil without a drop of blood spilled. And they just ask, will she have you? And Cersei's like, yeah, even the cow Lysa is able to tell the difference between bedding and wedding. And
he tells them, that I've had her plenty of times, and starts, bragging all over the place, and there's obviously a lot there that we as rereaders know, between the fact that he initiated everything, that this is all, even they've predetermined this point, which, shows the plays that he's doing against Tywin himself for his own power grabs, Littlefinger here. But he says, I couldn't wed her back then when I was just bedding her. I didn't have the titles. I wasn't allowed yet. But Harrenhal,
he was just a lowborn.
And he's been granted this castle that he's never even stepped foot inside. And yet here he has his opportunity.
So our resident Mace and Paxter Redwine expert, Micah, they share a look when Littlefinger says this. What do you think they share this look over?
Well, it may just be their sort of classist ideals.
Are they rolling their eyes of like, oh,
they could be rolling their eyes of, oh my God, this lowborn, really? Lord of the Vale? God.
Yeah, it's something we see a lot of with Davos chapters. A lot of those lords looking at him like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I was wondering if it was just that, or if they're, they've got an idea for Harrenhal, or, it's just...
Maybe
I was
they
questioning
wanted to offer up someone for Lysa themselves.
Absolutely.
Right.
See, that's more what I was thinking of it as. Sorry,
not really easy to tell, but I could see that as a potential link.
I mean, the Vale is it's prime real estate, man.
To me, I almost felt like the look was, oh, great. Littlefinger, who's in Tywin's pocket, is now going to marry Lysa, and he's going to have the Vale. So now Tywin's got the Warden of the East.
Secure
as well.
another.
We got West, we got East, and so I thought it was more of like those two are worried about more Lannister power in the realm.
Yep.
Well, Littlefinger assures them all that he will see young Robert Arryn grow up to be Joff's most loyal supporter. And
obviously,
this is when Tyrion notes this is what Baelish wanted all along. He disagrees with his father when he said it was no true reward, because he got exactly what he wanted without ever having to step foot in Harrenhal, truly. And
Littlefinger had to do hardly much of anything except for commit murder.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be lord of several thousands of people.
Yeah, and one stroke. People he's never met, small folk whose lives he knows nothing about. It's just, yep, here's your lord now. And this is when Kevin agrees, and Tyrion's like, oh, this is all just a bunch of bullshit. They already discussed this, said yes, and now they're just doing it
I
for
like
us.
that he called Kevin the van of his small council.
Right.
That he's the one that comes in. No, this is all correct. And then Tywin's like, yes, yes. And he's like, Kevin doesn't make his own decisions. So obviously this is the
Kevin can't.
Yeah.
So Tyrion says, well, if no one's going to fight this decision, I have to be the one. So what are we going to do without a master of coin? And I'm shocked he doesn't see this coming. But
I think this is all the ignorance, similar to what Cersei was doing, where she thinks she has all the answers. And Tyrion, I think, is better at having the answers than Cersei usually. But it's that he's so caught up in his own emotions at feeling betrayed and hurt and attacked that he doesn't pay attention to the signs that he should be, the things that he's capable of picking up on. As I mentioned to you and we discussed back in when he first started as the Hand, he was researching heavily into the ways that Littlefinger handles the coins. He was down at the docks studying ledgers and seeing the different forms that Littlefinger was signing, trying to make sense of the system that he was utilizing to make money. And so, of course, what better person to do that? And it's obvious even to you as a first-time reader that by the language that Tywin was using, that you're going to be in that kind of a thing. The fact that he didn't see it, I think, is just him being too focused on the stupid shit that he doesn't need to be paying attention to right now.
Yeah, no, totally.
Tywin says that he's admirably suited to the task. Kevin squawks his agreement like a good parrot. And Tywin and I love the way Tywin just jumps from subject to subject. Okay, done. And he turns to Littlefinger and says, when would you leave? And Littlefinger says, tomorrow. I'll take a Bravosi ship named the Merling King. And Mace is like, well, you're going to miss the royal wedding. And, of course, Littlefinger's like, yeah, that's for the good for me, brah. He doesn't give a shit. He shrugs. He's like, yeah, well, if I don't go now, the storms will get worse, and then I won't be able to serve you at all. And Mace is, oh, true right, you better get
He's
going.
like, oh, yeah, I'm going to miss the wedding. Then he turns to the camera and winks.
Yeah, right. And yeah, it's a Jim from The Office moment of like, And so Redwine then, again, wants to bring up the Greyjoy alliance and actually discussing this. And Tywin makes a great point of, why would we give him anything for doing what he's already doing, which is attacking the North? Better to just not do anything and wait and see, hint, hint, and then maybe a better option might present itself in the future. And Tyrion's like, huh? I remember you saying quills and ink can win more battles than swords sometimes.
Yep.
Better option. And we all know it's Walder Frey. Yeah. The Red Wedding is into motion at this point.
Further setup for the Red Wedding.
The destruction of House Stark.
It's I still can't get over these little, tidbits of foreshadowing that Martin drops into these.
They're just
chapters.
A few lines.
That you don't have a choice but to reread this book multiple times to even comprehend that that's what they're referencing at this specific moment.
Tywin asks. I already said that one. Tyrion recalls. I'm just jumping all over my notes,
Apparently.
Guy. Talk shifts to the wedding. 300 Dornishmen are now on their way to King's Landing this very moment.
Woohoo!
And Lord Pufffish just blows right up. Because we learn, and this is something I've overlooked in every reread.
Which, it's funny, because we were just talking about it, because I've been just harping on Willas. One of our listeners wrote in mentioning, I'm a fan of the outlandish theories, Micah, so anything that makes no sense whatsoever, has little evidence, those are for me. And so I'm right now supporting this theory that Willas is a ward.
I knew that was the one you were thinking of.
So,
I'm like, he's thinking of the one with the warging, right?
Yeah. And I just love that idea. Whether it's true or not, I don't care. It's fun to think about. And so
I've been fun ones.
Paying a lot of attention to Willas. And Yeah,
And I missed it the first time. Oberyn's one of my favorite characters in the book, especially. And I completely missed that he crippled Willas in a tournament. Had no idea that occurred. And I mean, that is major, right, for Mace and this Dornish relationship. And so, like,
well, that's it, because it does. Martin did state there in that section that they've always had tensions. Lately, they've been okay with each other.
Scorpion tensions.
Until Oberyn accidentally poisoned Willas.
Crippled.
Yeah.
With
he crippled him. He broke his ankle or something.
And so Tywin says, I invited them.
At my son's request.
At my son's request to both wedding and council for the justice that Robert denied him for his sister Elia and her children. The audacity of Tywin, for one, just should be applauded. But Tyrion immediately is like, is anyone here gonna say anything? Do they have the spine? And of course no one does. Rowan looks like he might want to gag, but that's about it.
I got a thing to say for that when of course red wine doesn't care. Rowan looks fit to gag. This is potential foreshadowing and also some really good humanization for the vassals of the Reach, in that Rowan has a heart and he cares that a kid was murdered brutally and then passed off underneath the rug. And we might see this come to play in the Winds of Winter when Jon Connington and Aegon come to Storm's End and they're like, Targaryen prince, definitely, quote Targaryen. And Mathis Rowan may be like, yeah, screw it. Let's have my boss lined up with the guys who committed atrocities.
Right.
You got me.
Yeah, it certainly stands out. He's the only one who's disgusted at the table by this. I mean, of course, Cersei doesn't give a shit. Kevin doesn't care. He's
probably snoring at this point.
Poor Pycelle, doesn't even know where he's at. He's the only person in this room who is showing disdain at this. Even Tyrion isn't saying that, like, it makes him sick to hear his father say this.
He's more interested on everyone.
Tyrion walked right by Masha Hedel when she was hanging at the crossroads.
Right.
See, that's another thing, though, that we've been highlighting this reread is why idolize Tyrion. Tyrion is not a good person. I mean, he's got moments, and everyone, and obviously Martin highlights black and white characters are. Yeah,
he's easily one of the best written characters in the whole thing.
Right.
Because of how flawed he is and how different the insights he
flawed,
puts
and in some areas you can sympathize.
Exactly.
You can especially understand him.
Whether he's doing something morally not so good, or it's the saving of a young maiden's virtues and not screwing Sansa over for the rest of her life, you can see why he does it, even if you don't agree with that decision. Usually you don't agree because a lot of them,
most of them are
a lot of them are pretty bad.
Right. I mean, Tyrion's capable of going from monstrous acts. I mean, he's capable of rape. He shows that in these books, to attempting to save Sansa's virtue however he can. A character capable of that kind of a flip-flop is obviously someone very nuanced, very flawed, but many layered. And I think that's why Tyrion is one of the biggest fan favorites, because he's so easy to find something that's like, yep, I see myself in that.
Yep, and it's such a huge tragedy when he has his downfall in this book.
Yeah, the downfall is brutal. It's so dark. And when you first read it, again, you just read it to finish the book, to get through the book, like, okay. When you reread it, holy hell, Tyrion is in a dark place. Yeah, he is messed up in Dance because of all of this, everything that's happened here. And Tyrion's great, but it's all from a place of privilege with him. And so Mace says that, and it's so bullshit, that he has no problem with Doran Martell as long as he asks leave to cross his land, which, okay, that's going to happen, I'm sure. Just
again, it's that discussion from earlier. Like you're going to go down there to your border, meet Doran Martell at the border, be like, Are you here to request permission, sir?
Right.
Then I grant thee entry to my king. Like, fuck off, Mace.
I'm a bridge troll.
Yeah, right, yeah. Where's my toll? Yeah.
Have we received the bridge troll's raven yet, saying that Oberyn's asked permission? Like, get that out of here. But
so from there, they move on to the fruits of their victories. There are plenty of lands and titles that need to be distributed. And Mace scoops up the lion's share of them. Of course he does. Demanding
These are mine.
First. Them Nate and I were doing the fight. Mine from fighting. He scoops up the lands and castles of Lord Alistair Florent, who first was foolish enough to side with Renly, which we'll just skirt under that we did that too. And then he sided with Stannis as well, which is like bad. So we'll take those. Sir Garland is granted. Oh, did you have?
No, I just had like a little bit of things.
Oh, please.
Just because of Brightwater. Brightwater is. I'm excited to see where House Florent goes from here because we have yet to meet the heir of Brightwater Keep, Alicent Florent, who is currently in Old Town whining to his sister for help. But Sam is also in Old Town, so we might get to see Alicent, and he might be somewhat of a not as awful Florent. He might be decent, which is good in Westeros.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then the contestation for Brightwater would be real interesting.
Contestation for Brightwater and how that unfolds with Euron. We might get to actually see Brightwater when Sam has to book it.
And we did just get that announcement from Martin's Not a Blog that he's spending a lot of time in Old Town.
I'm ready for my boy Alicent.
Oh man,
there it is.
Old Town.
We need those minor characters to it.
Yes.
And in one fell stroke, this makes Sir Garland a great lord, not just a high lord, but one of the players who could sit at this council table right now. And
that makes two major castles with the name Tyrell on that banner.
Yeah, it's and Loras as a renowned Kingsguard. Like this family is set in spades, about to have a queen. Like so. From there, the rest were kind of divvied out. Red Wine asks for the 30% tax to just be lifted or the tax Littlefinger for like 30 years. Just lift that. Then let's get some of our wine in here and just do a toast. Like, let's just toast to it, dude.
So they also did set aside some land for Lords Tarly, Lady Oakhart, and Lord Hightower, and then a bunch of others as well. Because that, like I said, there was a shitload of land there.
So, talk about privilege. These people aren't here. So let's just, we'll hold these empty castles, this land where people live, work, have to exist in life, raise their children. We'll just put them in fucking limbo while waiting for these other lords.
The Reach is one of the biggest areas of land in Westeros. So Mace Tyrell is on the far west portion of it, like up next, almost to the coast. And he owns lands all the way over to Bitterbridge, which is like a couple 100 miles away.
At least, I would think.
At least, and Bitterbridge is not the farthest part. Bitterbridge is in the center.
So,
his calling for a toast in the cast because he wants all the wine, once the taxes are levied. And Cersei's pissed. She's like, I don't need toasts right now. We need swords. So how about you fuck off with your wine?
I mean, that's Cersei
But that have been her line. That should have been her line in the show.
Think that. The next point of order is that the High Septon's crown has been found smashed to bits, and that will need to be repaired because, we can't make a show of our wedding if the High Septon isn't actually High Septon because then people will question it.
They don't care about why it was destroyed.
Right. No, we don't care that the other guy was literally ripped apart.
Although there was this interesting line the High Septon gave around this part somewhere, I don't know, where he's actually makes a good point of good men being weary of war. When Tywin and Mace are doing their plannings, the High Septon's like, well, sometimes people get tired of all this, and I thought that was a nice little line there.
Right, that was to help it garner favor for Littlefinger going to the Eyrie, because if he can do it without a drop of blood spilled, the land would thank us. The gods will thank us. Yeah. And it just
it's a good line.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's
especially
super
from him, like because what was it? The bread riots where his shit got torn down and smashed his crown?
That was a different High Septon.
That was the second
yeah,
one.
he's
that was the first one.
But
This
the
one's the
crown,
second one.
It's
It's
the same crown.
It's
right?
just,
So
well,
that's
like
the crown
they got a
replacing.
remake, yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe
I think this might be one of the first times we actually get to see this High Septon doing something.
Right, yeah.
Because weren't they still deciding
who to
on
appoint
who they were
and,
going to appoint during? I think it was Tyrion's last chapter, actually, maybe.
Somewhere in there.
Something like that.
But yeah, it reminded me a lot of the that line that you just pointed out, Mike. It reminded me of the broken man quote that we get in Feast from, men fleeing
Definitely.
war become beast-like. They become animals. And we're starting to see that turn. And first we're seeing it in the High Lords, the great lords, as they call themselves.
They're animals too. They're just dressed up nicely.
Yeah. I mean, why is it more honorable to kill 500 men at battle than 200 men at dinner? And that's monstrous of a way to think when lives don't come into the equation. It's not the cost of human life. It's just we need to do this to win our war, and it's monstrous, this chapter.
But so arrangements are made for a new crown to be forged.
Yeah.
And then we switch to the Varys report.
The Varys report.
Tonight at 7 p.m. reporting live.
The Varys report.
He comes in and he announces that there's been Kraken sighted pulling shit off of the coast of, was it the Fingers?
The Fingers.
Off the Fingers, yep.
What?
Off the Fingers.
Now, we also learned that in the same headline there, there's been a 3-headed dragon born in Karth.
Right.
Yep.
Now, do you think that, even though he says, and I don't mean like long ships and Greyjoys, but a Kraken, do you think that this is skewed similar to that 3-headed dragon?
No, the 3-headed the 3-headed dragon is Varys skewing it intentionally. Let me present Tywin a bullshit story of a 3-headed dragon because I don't want him digging around my Targaryen-ness.
Mm-hmm.
But the Kraken is that's Westeros. He could get those reports from anywhere. He's gonna hear about this dragon in Karth. But if I make it
crazy right now,
crazy and fantastical like a fairy tale,
he makes Tywin ignore it for now.
He's gonna write it off. Yeah, and so Varys doesn't want Tywin looking east. So yeah, I'll do a Kraken and I'll do a dragon and combine them in the same. And we also get that there's a new war fight. There's fighting in the Stepstones as well. There's a new war between Lys and Myr, I believe.
Yeah,
and
Lys and Myr.
Tyrosh, and they're fighting over.
Oh, it's Tyrosh.
And I think they're fighting over Myr's loyalty. They believe Myr is going to join Lys, I think. And so it's the
turns
best
out the
lies.
wildlings are coming too.
The best lies you sprinkle with the truth. So yeah, I think Varys was his skirt away from his real plan. Don't look east at this dragon. It's ridiculous and fantastical, and it's 3-headed, and it can't possibly be real. So I absolutely think it was an intentional lie.
And with all this stuff happening, we get a line from Paxter coming up where he says, well, why is there anything not stirring? And Mitch had put down on a note, yes, wise words from a man in Euron ravaging distance.
No kidding.
Yeah, you just keep a close eye on those Krakens there, my friend.
Yeah, they're gonna come around the Arm of Dorne here in an Arianne chapter, I believe, somewhere.
Yeah,
that sounds about right to me. So Tywin then asks Varys if there's been any word of the missing cousin Tyrek. Tyrek's been missing since the Battle of Blackwater, and he had everybody out looking for the body, vowing to find it. No sign yet. Still no news.
Oh, yeah, Varys totally doesn't know where Tyrek is.
No, not at all. He's just about to cry, but no.
He's just like, oh, that poor boy. I'm so worried.
Yeah, it's... Oh, man. This whole council is just a show.
It's all just BS.
Yeah. And then I think one of the funniest points, some deserter gold cloaks have shown back up reporting for duty, sir. Hello.
My bad.
We're cool, right?
My bad. They're just coming to work Monday morning.
They need to know what's to be done with them. Cersei, of course, wants them killed. Varys suggests the wall. Tywin says break their knees with hammers.
Jesus.
Okay.
Death.
I feel, yeah, right.
Penal colony. Pain.
Right. Crippling, yeah, so they can't run. Holy hell. And then even...
So I thought this was interesting on how similar this was just to Ned in general, and them being the ones who betrayed Ned for Littlefinger, with how he was going to go to the wall, and then all of a sudden, no, fuck that, kill him instead. And so Cersei wants him dead, and Varys, no, we can send them to the wall. No, we're going to kill them anyway. Make a lesson of them. Smash out smash out all their knees. Just fucking.
Well, then even Tyrion, and again, that callousness, maybe break a couple knees, but send like 2 or 3 up to Bowen Marsh at the wall, because like there's some crazy reports. And this is when Tywin basically says, I don't give a shit if the wall falls, because the wildlings invade the north, and that's nothing but good for us. And like, again, my word, dude. Show like a tiny speck of compassion for just anything that exists around you.
Yep.
The wall falling is, especially in this world,
substantial.
A world ending, right? That's apocalyptic, like biblical stuff.
That's
happening.
Like if we were to wake up one morning and the Great Pyramid of Giza suddenly blew up in a volcanic eruption.
Right. It is astronomically inconceivable to these people of how bad that would be. And Tywin is like, yeah, that'd be cool, because maybe Mance Rayder and I could like
partner up, bromance.
Which Tywin, Mance would absolutely eat you up in.
I would love a scene of those two. Just Mance would just be like, wow, you are just full of shit. And not gold.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so I believe
I would still, though, I would like to see how Tywin would react to actually seeing a white, to seeing the others, because this is his response, thinking that's all a bunch of horse shit, thinking that it's nothing but Grumpkins up there and just fake bullshit like Tyrion joked about when he was up there. But if they, and granted, we could say that for everybody in the whole fucking Westeros, well, if they saw the White Wolves, then they'd change their mind. But it'd just be interesting to see his reaction specifically, because of how, I don't give a shit about that. But if he understood the actual threat wasn't the wildlings, would he care then? Would he have a little more interest in bolstering those defenses like Stannis?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Right. Given my experience with 2020 so far, I don't believe that Tywin will believe the White Walkers are real until he is raised as a white himself.
Tywin, I will not be wearing a mask. I don't care how many of these things come from over that wall. The masks are just keeping me from being able to breathe.
He'll look at a White Walker in the face and deny its existence.
I'm of the opinion Tywin would piss himself and fall into a ball, and he would absolutely become what he is. His entire image would shatter if he saw the reality of what's beyond the wall. And I think that's the same of true as.
So right now, then you're saying he's making Westeros. I'm making Westeros great again.
He's trying to do something, but it's a little topical. Too topical. And so this is when they conclude that, is that all? Yes, Kevin. And Kevin, of course, gives the song and dance. I'm sure King Joffrey would thank you all for your great counsel. And Tywin says he wants a word with his children. And Kevin, of course, you can stay because you don't matter. And everyone leaves respectfully. And Tywin is left with his children. Tyrion immediately lays into Littlefinger how he doesn't trust him. He's sneaky. He wants something, which, like, aren't we all in this room, dude? But again, who am I to judge? Which immediately starts a little pissing match between him and Cersei of going back and forth.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite conversations between these two, because we've gotten a few of them where they're by themselves having these kinds of sparring matches, these intellectual, jousts. But this is the first time it's been moderated by Tywin. And so with him as the referee standing in here being like, no, let me show you guys what ones are fouls and what's not.
Yeah, he doesn't deal with it too long, though.
No, he doesn't.
No time to do that.
Conduct yourselves as Lannisters. And from there, okay, Cersei, guess what? It's past time you were married again, sweetheart. And, of course, Cersei takes that about how you would expect and demands that she won't. I won't again. I will not. And They do good cop, bad cop, Kevin and Tywin, because Kevin's like, Your Grace, do you really want to be alone? You're a woman. You can't handle that. And Tywin's like, you're my daughter. I'm going to sell you. So, like, you're marrying people.
Do you think they rehearse these while they're in the dressing rooms trying on their outfits?
Absolutely. Like, while they were shaving.
Yeah. No, Kevin, you're saying it wrong. You need to get it right, or we're going to botch the whole thing.
Oh, man.
I think, again, I'd like to point out the differences of the rereader versus the first-time reader. And while it's clear and obvious that Cersei should marry after all that's happened and that she's been single for so long, it's just the way that Martin writes, it still came as this massive surprise the first time I read it, where it's like, oh, shit, they're marrying the queen? Of course, why wouldn't they? But it's just so funny how little you think about that until you actually understand the politics of the world. And so it's just interesting to think about how easy it is to overlook those types of things.
Yeah, and in this chapter especially, there's so much going on. Like, we just had Krakens mentioned the first time, that your mind's just gonna go completely blank and be like, oh, right, queens. In this patriarchal society, they're meant to do these things and remarry because, oh no, a woman alone.
Right.
How terrible.
Right.
Idle hands, a devil's playground. Yeah. And Tywin hooks her by saying, if you wish to have any choice in your next husband, you'll stay. And that, of course, she resigns herself to that. And he mentions Balon Greyjoy, which, wowzers.
Just he's still married.
Whew.
He's still married.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, he even says, like, his wife is elderly and failing. Like, okay.
So he'll be available soon.
He'll be available real soon. And he goes on saying, Oberyn Martell could suit, but the Tyrells would be pissed about that.
The Tyrells would be pissed.
All right, well, I get that in no world would it ever actually work. Can we just talk about a power couple if Oberyn and Cersei actually did hook up? That'd be...
I'm eternally just picturing Lena Headey and Pedro Pascal as those two.
Oh,
and
right.
I just loved their scenes.
The greatest thing ever. Would have been,
especially at Joffrey's wedding.
They both hate each other, and it would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And Tywin goes on. He's considered the Red Wine Twins: Theon Greyjoy, Quentin Martell.
Red Wine Twins.
Oh my boy, this is just a list of A stars here, and a number of others. But
so if she gets bored with,
I want to know about the rest of that list.
I would like to know some of the others as well, because who are the people Tywin doesn't think need to be named when he's naming those names?
I could have her go to Balon. Or Theon.
However, he mentions the heir of Highgarden, Willas. Willas.
Which is a good deal. Like, I don't get why she's so bummed about that.
Because
It's
Tyrion...
Tyrell, and there are dangers.
And Tyrion leans forward and points out that would be the cripple. Which is like, geez. Like, you yourself... think about yourself, how people view you as a cripple, and how that messes with your head. And like, you don't even know the guy, and you're just like, yeah, that's a cripple one you're stuck with. Ha!
Just laughing at her.
Like, Tyrion is, he goes from being a great guy to just an absolutely gross guy.
You're
sometimes.
an asshole, Tyrion.
But
gotta love good old Westeros.
Yeah, with the that would be the cripple. Tywin chills Tyrion with a look and just freezes him there and says, Willas is heir to Highgarden, said to be very courtly and pleasant and nice, kind-hearted. He raises animals. He looks at the stars like he wouldn't be a Robert.
I think we forgot to mention that the whole reason that this was brought up technically was that Tywin was mentioning Littlefinger brought news that Ser Dantos had contacted him because Sansa had made him aware of the plans to have her marry Willas.
Holy hell, you're right.
And so that's what led into him saying, we need to talk about you being married. Here's the options, but we're going to do Willas so that way Sansa can't.
Yep.
take it
you
out
can
from
resign and have a choice, but I'm going to choose anyway. I've also
Right.
already chosen yesterday when Kevin was shaving my head.
Right.
And yeah, Tyrion notes that it's a perfect match because while Willas has a penchant for breeding animals, Cersei also has a penchant for breeding, and he pities Willas and doesn't know whether to laugh.
How awful of a father do you have to be to really just objectify your daughter in the worst way imaginable? Just
and
so despicable.
Give her there's nothing she says here is taken into consideration.
Right.
Like, as you said, him and Kevin already decided this during their shaving moment. Like, this is signed, sealed, delivered. So, like, sucks to suck, but here you go. Here's what's happening to you, not for you, not with you.
Yeah,
this is what's happening to you.
It's just like when she married Robert the last time. She had no choice in the matter.
Right,
and
exactly.
hated it the whole time.
Willas may be better than Robert, probably.
I'm 100% going to say that Willas is better of a person than Robert Baratheon turned out to be.
From the sounds of it, Willas is better than like most of his entire family and most of the High Lords of Westeros.
Yeah,
exactly. So that leads finally to Tywin giving her the option of, this would be my choice, but if you have anybody else, and she says, "That is so very kind of you, father. It is such a difficult choice you give me. Who would I sooner take to bed, the old squid or the crippled boy? I shall need a few days to consider. Do I have your leave to go?" Ugh. And Tyrion is like, "Yo, you're the queen. Why are you asking him for permission? What are you thinking?" But he keeps it to himself. But similar to
in Rhea.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead. Oh no, you first.
Similar to how Oberyn and Cersei would make a power team. If these two could ever actually fucking work together, they would be capable of doing unbelievable things. Because he's the one that spots these flaws in Tywin's, but she's the one that has the power to enact it. She's not a dwarf.
Uh-huh.
She can be seen as somebody that's respected to an extent because she is still a woman in this world. So,
yeah, and like the deal is with like Tywin, he is so utterly feared that no one is willing to or has the spine to do anything against him because, like, someone kidnapped his son. Might as well burn an entire fertile river system.
Yeah. Yeah, he completely decimated an ecosystem there in the Riverlands.
Yeah.
Just because you're not going to one-up me. That's my son. It's the son I hate. I can't stand the little shit. And, if you accidentally kill him, great, I'll wage war. But, I'll be done with him.
It was against his pride. And they can't do anything against that because of how he reacts to it. And no one's willing to go against him. Therefore, his followers will do whatever he wants, which enables him.
And it's all built on the Castameres and the Tarbecks, which happened years and years and years ago. He's living based off this myth, not myth because it happened, but this happened years ago. Like, Tywin has, and he's done some sketchy things since, but the most active sketchy thing he's been involved in is the death of Elya's children. And that's not enough to strike the fear that Castamere did, but he's still coasting on that wave of mess with me and you're gonna hear the Reigns of Castamere playing. And
as far as everyone knows, that's turned out to be true with how he's treated the Riverlands.
Right. And so he tells Cersei, "Go. We shall talk again after you have composed yourself. Remember your duty." And after you've composed yourself, get your shit together. You got to get married to someone you haven't ever met.
This is just a chapter of remember how terrible people Cersei and Tyrion are. Here's their dad.
Yeah, right.
He's a million times worse.
This is where they get it.
Well, similarly, we've also, through this reread, been pointing out, victims of circumstance to an extent. If you're bred that way, if you're raised that way, then that's how you're going to act. Not that it's an excuse, because once you are old enough to make those decisions, you technically could go, "No, wow, I was raised by a terrible person. These are terrible things."
But tradition's a hard thing to break.
Tradition's a hard thing to break, and when you're raised by
Jon Snow
people
is the epitome of tradition is hard to break with the wildlings. You know, there's that inherent xenophobia.
Daenerys too, over in Slave of Faith.
Of course.
You can't bring a forcible change. You gotta break it down from within, or write a series that involves killing off almost all of the High Lords, just so as all the children can inherit and change it themselves.
Right.
Micah for president 2024.
That's right.
So, Cersei leaves, and now it's Tyrion's turn. And
Oof.
he says, just without any pretext, Nate's dying over here, that his whoring is a weakness, but perhaps some of the blame is on me because, you know, you're a little man, so I forgot that you have the needs and wants of a regular man. So it's past time you were wed. And Tyrion, of course, recalls Tysha. I was wed. Have you forgotten that? Which, of course, Tywin's forgotten that. I
don't think Tywin has actually forgotten that, but that's
probably not
the main thing. But
it wounded his pride. He can't forget it.
And he already knows. He tells him, you plan to marry me to Sansa Stark, right? I get you. You know that won't that piss off the Tyrells as they plan on marrying her? And he's like, I don't know anything about those plans. How am I supposed to, how can they be offended?
Plans?
I don't know anything about that.
My.
Right.
Huh.
It's the song and dance of the court here, where like they can't announce it until after the king and queen are married because that's just respectful. But if we don't know of any plans, we can marry Sansa before then. Wink, wink. So it's just this song and dance of Littlefinger told them because Dantos told Littlefinger. And now let's make sure that they don't get the key to the north and steal Sansa Stark right out from under us. So here we go. And of course, Tyrion brings up she's just a child, even though she's flowered. She's just a child, and I will not, break her maidenhead and get her with child. And Tywin says, whether or not you choose to mistreat her is up to you. I don't really give a damn. You just need to consummate the marriage, and then if you want to wait a couple years, get her pregnant then. But it's happening. Like this isn't a conversation. It's just like Cersei. You're doing it.
Yep.
So then
Tywin's there for the power and the political standing.
Right.
Yeah. And so then they give the big reveal to the rereader that the Red Wedding's planned. And whoever marries Sansa has claim to Winterfell. And that wouldn't be so unless there wasn't a king in the north, Robb Stark. And so I'm pretty sure that this is him stating like, yeah, we're set to be done with that little shithead. So you need to marry her so that you can have your castle and your lands.
Tywin vehemently says that, or Tyrion even says that, if Robb Stark has any kids, Sansa's heir to nothing. And Tywin's, nope, that ain't gonna happen. Trust me on that. I got you covered there. Sansa Stark will be the key to the north, which, right.
Yep. And another the camera and winks.
Right, another red flag.
That could also be foreshadowing for Endgame, where Sansa will probably end up with Winterfell at the end of the story in some fashion.
Mm-hmm. I believe it in my heart to be true that she is going to take it back without being married. She's going to do it Sansa Stark of Winterfell, not any marriage contract, any bullshittery like that. She's going to do it herself because she's Sansa and she's awesome.
Yeah.
But this is where Tywin's like, you asked to be rewarded for all the stuff. You asked for Casterly Rock. Ha, 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 ha. This is way better than you could ever hope for. So maybe just suck it up and accept Winterfell as your prize, which, again, it's not just Winterfell. It is a person. There is Sansa Stark attached to this, but
it's like when you're asking your manager for a raise because you've done so well, and instead of that, they move you to another department where you have the opportunity to get a raise, but it's not going to happen then, and the chances of it actually happening are slim, and they're like, this is the best we could do.
Right. We'll talk at your 6-month review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This chapter, man.
There's so much that happens. Yeah, it's
so
hard to just
much.
keep track of because it's all conversation.
There's a lot. That may or may not be why I picked this one.
I get it.
No, we're glad you picked this one just to get as much out of it.
I've been so excited for this one. They mentioned Lawless, that Tywin had once almost suggested
Yeah,
Tyrion
and
be married to
just, man,
Lawless.
Tyrion, you can't disrespect Lawless. Come on.
Right?
Dude.
Like, I've vehemently been on Shay's shit
Yeah.
for how much she gives Lawless about the rape. And she's just like, oh, we should go to the wedding. You're not going to be raped at the wedding. And it's like, Shay, this poor girl was ripped from her saddle, and it was multiple times. It wasn't just once. And Shay's callousness towards it is inhuman, let alone like this here where Tyrion's like, yeah, no, I'd sooner cut my dick off than be with Lawless. And it's like, Jesus, like no one can just be like, you know what?
Come on.
Leave Lawless alone.
Maybe
like,
Bronn will turn out to be decent to her.
Right, maybe. Mhm.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Dear God. Leave her alone, Bronn.
Yeah, right. So Tyrion then mentions, how come it has to be Sansa? Why can't I have Balon's daughter there instead? And Tywin's like, yeah, that doesn't work out so much. It would
She's
be
too good for him anyway.
right. Like fucking yeah, you don't deserve.
Yeah, no,
that.
she would kick his ass. Are you kidding me?
But he says, because when you return to Winterfell, you need to have a Northerner's child with you, not someone from the Iron Islands, because they'd never accept you. You need to go home with her, with a kid.
You'd be returning with Eddard Stark's grandchild.
Right.
And that right there that's the ticket. Is the name Eddard Stark will carry so much weight. You're bringing the grandchild. It's not going to matter that you're a Lannister. It's going to matter that this child is Ned Stark's blood and potential heir after Sansa. And so Tywin knows what he's doing. He's not an idiot. He's just an absolutely cold-hearted machine.
Yeah.
And it's a little terrifying to see it so clearly on a reread when, you can lay it all out and realize what it is he's planning and plotting, and just the absolute disregard for anyone but what he wants. It's nutty. And so,
Tyrion
he's such a great villain.
He really is.
Yeah, he is.
Tyrion thinks of himself as Lord Protector of Winterfell. He's titling himself based off of it. And he's like, that actually isn't so bad. And so he agrees, except for one little snag there, Father, Robb Stark. And this is where he reveals another huge fucking revelation for this one chapter. Tyrion learns that Robb has married Jane Westerling. He is not going to be marrying a Frey, which is news we already have from Kat's chapter a few chapters ago, obviously. But man, does Tywin elaborate on this situation, because we already knew that Gawain Westerling was a captive of the North. From Whispering Wood. But we start to learn about some of the history of the house and who they are. And that she might not be just purely in love with Robb, that potentially it's all a ruse. 100% of it's all fucked. And damn, man.
Yeah, they mention Jane Westerling's her daughter's mother, or no, her mother's daughter. I had my notes mixed up. Her mother's daughter, and Robb, his father's son.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this proven in A Feast for Crows when Jane finds out what Sybil did, and Jane's not up for it.
Right.
Jane's on our side, and in her own grief, she rips her dress, and I feel so bad for Jane.
There's the theory that goes around that the Magi that is reported, because it said that there was a Magi that Sybil Spicer's grandfather.
Her grandmother was some woman he'd brought back from the east. A frightening old crone, supposed to be a priestess. Magi, they called her. No one could pronounce her real name, but she used to brew potions and balms and poultices.
There's a theory out there that the love potions thing that people used to go to this Magi for may have been passed down to Lady Sybil, and that's how they got Robb to forsake his stuff. I mean, I buy more into the fact that Robb is just stupid honorable and
a teenager.
Yeah, I buy to the fact that he's his father's son and a teenager, and just has the presence of Jon and Catelyn's relationship in his mind.
Right, at all times. And
absolutely. See,
the fact that this is clearly set up by Tywin. He straight up said Robb Stark is his father's son. Jane Westerling is her mother's daughter. I mean, to me, this ending here seemed to be talking about Kevin and Tywin setting up the Westerling marriage. Do you buy that? Do you think it was a plant from Tywin? Or do you think it's...
I think
it's a good idea.
I think he's hopping onto the opportunity of manifesting himself, and that Robb marrying Jane in response to them having sex was an opportunity for Tywin to go, okay, Sibel, I need you to not let them have a child. I have this plan in works to have Walder Frey betray Robb for this act. And in order for it to work fully, I need Jane to be barren.
Which is, what kind of person is Lady Sybil, man?
She's just Tywin given female form.
Right. Apparently, yeah, exactly.
Doesn't care about their children, just where they are in a political stance.
Well, I mean, technically, we could even compare her to Hoster Tully at that point with...
That's a great comparison.
Especially, and I almost want to say even Cersei and Catelyn themselves, these mothers that are willing to go to any length. I'm sure if because what we were thinking is that the Westerlings are working with Tywin at this point, except Jane. Jane fell, just like Robb did. Yeah. They both fell. But Sybil is worried about the well-being of her family, the keeping her house alive as well, and knowing the history of the houses in Castamere and Tywin.
And Tyrion makes note that it's like, hey, the crag is like right next door to Castamere.
Yeah,
right.
There's totally an angle to see from this that Sybil is concerned about the well-being of her house.
Yeah, and so I don't necessarily think or know whether or not she's evil or a bad person.
I wouldn't. I would say that her act of doing that to her daughter is in itself an evil act, but
definitely
preservation.
It is understandable that she's one of Tywin's bannermen, and her husband is currently being kept in Raventree Hall by the Blackwoods.
Yeah, and he
doesn't have options against that.
Because of losing children. We her father's dying while announcing this stuff. We're seeing the regret that he has. So we know that it's a deplorable act. She won't feel good about it, I'm sure, one day. But her kid survives the Red Wedding. And that's more than could be said if she was with a child. They would have had to follow the show's steps, and have her killed right
but
there.
Now it is what it is. Sybil Spicer walked into the void. There's so many characters of tread.
Tyrion notes that Tywin is not nearly as angry as he would expect, and this is when we get the raids of Castamere and Tarbeck and the very heavy foreshadowing of if you hear the rains of Castamere, it's already too late. And so... Tyrion at the end says, you'd think the Westerlings, pointing out that the crag is not so far from Castamere and Tarbeck Hall, you'd think the Westerlings might have ridden past and seen the lesson there. And Tywin says, mayhaps they have. They are well aware of Castamere, I promise you. And it's just Tywin's the control he thinks he has is a little sickening here. And the last paragraph that concludes this chapter is, every once in a very long while, Lord Tywin Lannister would actually threaten to smile. He never did, but the threat alone was terrible to behold.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, we've had so few interactions with Tywin before this book. We have his introduction and then the last two Tyrion chapters. And then we have him sort of like making a small appearance in Arya's chapters in Harrenhal, followed by the finale of Clash of Kings, where he shows up on his horse, and he's just like, look at what I did. So in Storm of Swords, we get him as full-on 100% the villain he is. I'm here for it. I'm here for the villains.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the table, in the king's seat, even though he's not the king, I mean, it's...
just exuding this confidence and power, with the queen sitting there next to him, the High Septon, like he's surrounded by the most powerful people in the realm.
And everyone's eating up everything that he says.
Yeah.
Just no one has a chance to fight him.
Yeah.
Until you catch him in the toilet.
And then his last line, which I think it could be very much debatable about who he's referring to, he says, the greatest fools are oft-time more clever than the men who laugh at them. And then he says, "You will marry Sansa Stark, Tyrion, and soon."
So this is Patchface he's talking about, right?
Duh.
Okay.
Patchface, Dantos Hollard, Moon Boy, for all we know.
Right. Alrighty, so hell of a Tyrion.
Oh yeah, I got one more note that I put on.
Please, absolutely.
It's sort of the last thing for Mace Tyrell, since I gave him so much spotlight.
Yeah, please do.
In terms of how he is in, this is our first introduction of Mace Tyrell. Is this chapter? This is where he shows up, and we get a bunch of Mace Tyrell. And it's interesting to contrast it with the introduction to Olenna Redwine in Sansa's chapter, where we get an entire chapter given to Olenna's introduction and her examination of Joffrey's character. We get an establishment that Olenna is a player of the game. She's moving some gears around. And when we get introduced to Mace, he's introduced in a board of other players as a piece of the puzzle, not necessarily someone who is as much of a mental mastermind as Olenna would be. I just thought that was a very interesting detail there in how they're both introduced.
Yeah, it paints him more as a piece, not a mover of pieces. He is someone on the board. He's not someone moving the pieces. He gets to move some
board. Of the pieces, but
right. He's a king, but he's not the one playing the chess.
Olenna's the queen piece.
Right.
Dart all over the place.
Dart all over. Right. Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, they're you can tell a lot from the mother's introduction to the son's introduction, and it's Olenna doesn't need this to puff up, because everything she says is just it's barbed and it hits right to what she's trying to get to.
And it's her own opinion. It's not her just agreeing to what she thinks they want to hear.
Yeah, it's her own opinion, her own judgments. And you even have what Tywin just said about fools and whatnot. She uses her own fool to her advantage.
Right.
To keep anyone else from knowing about what she says.
Right. How does Mace Tyrell have a mother like that and end up like this?
I don't know. I have no idea.
All right. So I think we'll convene our small council, get some inductees, then get a wrap up on this Tyrion 3. So
cool. So we'll see all of our listeners nowhere, because we're a podcast with no video, but we'll catch you on the small council.
Right.
Okay, and we're back here in the small council, once again joined by Micah for our first small council with
more than just us.
A live guest, man. It's so great.
So it'll actually be entertaining this time.
Yeah, I know.
So with that, for the first time, Micah, Nate has explained the inductees. Actually, we'll go, Nate, you want to give yours first, and then we'll go with Micah. That way.
Yeah, so I think I've done it recently for another chapter, but if not, I'm giving mine to Willas Tyrell. He's over there hanging out in Highgarden. He's being complimented by some of the most powerful people in the realm. Tywin Lannister and, Olenna, obviously, she's going to tout that thing. But
build him up,
Sansa, is hearing all about him. And he just sounds like such a great guy. And it's so rare to see in these damn books that, you got to take one of them when you can get them. And I'm a sucker for a good person. And, I mean, he loves animals. And who doesn't want to have animals?
He probably has a dog.
At least one dog.
Sansa's picturing them with puppies on their lap.
Puppies in the lap.
He's probably got a bunch of puppies, yeah.
I love it. So I'm giving mine to Willas, welcoming him into the Brotherhood this week. Zach, do you want to go next and let Micah?
We'll go ahead and let Micah, so that way.
All right.
We get a good one.
I've chosen one of the minorest of minor characters. He only has one visual appearance in the book so far, and that is going to go to Gawain Westerling.
Yes. Nice.
But no one expected this.
I love it.
So the reason I'm giving it to him is because, as recorded in this chapter, he married someone who is related to another person of low birth. The Spicer family is not a Westerosi noble family. They are descended from merchants and a magi from somewhere. So kudos to Gawain Westerling for going beyond Westerosi traditions and marrying someone who's not a Westerosi noble.
Yeah.
Even though it might not have been his decision, it's not all that clear, but
it's progressive.
Kudos.
Yeah,
right.
Man,
awesome. There you go. Good job.
Yeah, that's
Give a clap
awesome.
to Gawain Westerling.
Yeah, man, that was good. I like that.
Great,
absolutely.
Inductee. That's perfect.
All right. For mine's got to go to Littlefinger. I feel like he had even over Tywin, I feel like he had just a little bit more control and knowledge of what was happening in that small council with playing the Tyrells against the Lannisters with
Yeah.
his plot with Sansa. Littlefinger's the one who, and he is a little bit kind of being like, yeah, I've got the key between my legs, but he's not puffing up like Mace. He's not being aggressive toward people like Tywin. He's just kind of being like, yeah, I'm a bit of a scumbag with coin, but like, that's what I do. That's what you let me do. So let me do.
You are.
Right. Let me do what I do, and we'll win this war. And
yeah,
he's got so much foresight. Like, because Tywin is on display here pretty apparently. Littlefinger's is so subtly layered into the chapter that you really have to know what Littlefinger is planning. And so his just extends a little bit beyond Tywin's plans. And I think that, to me, made him shine just a little brighter in this small council of
and I think this is our last time with him in the small council, I believe.
Right, yeah, and because he's dipping out the next day to go up to the Eyrie. Right. So yeah, it's good stuff. And we did receive one from the interwebs.
Yes. So now we will read in, we got one of our listeners from France, our favorite French fry, Julian, as we call him. He wrote in and said, hey there, wonderful chapter, The Heart of Politics by Tywin Lannister. To be honest, apart from a couple of facts cut out or changed, the TV show had it all pretty well figured out for this spot. I realized how well cast some actors at that point were and how well those actors did their jobs. Inductee-wise, I want to bring some music to the Brotherhood. We got plenty of people we love to share meat and mead with. We got a few we hate for fun. We have some wolves, swords, and items. We now need some background music. And what better music than the Rains of Castamere? A song I love, a song I sing. And who are you? The proud lord said, that I must bow so low. Only a cat of a different coat. That's all the truth I know. Valaranus of Castamaris. Thank you, Julian. We love it when you write in.
I actually do love the song. It's
a great song.
It's a catchy tune.
I also sing it randomly.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's one I'll bust out.
Yeah, so
as a nerd, it's fun to do.
For writing in all the way from France. Micah, again, thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to send us your inductees, we will give our socials
just
real
like
fast.
Two or three of ours,
So our
get
email,
the important ones from Micah.
Our email is the common one, withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter @mannerswithout. Zach is on Twitter sometimes @carstark92. And we ignore the Instagram, but you can follow us there @mannerswithout as well. But ignore those this episode anyway, and go follow Micah everywhere you can. He's going to give you all of his locations to find him right now.
Yeah. I'm on Twitter as well @Micah_Clark. You can find me there chatting about Song of Ice and Fire, minor characters, usually random stuff. Sometimes talk about my own life. Other times I got a book I'm working on, and I also read a lot of other books that I demand other people read.
Rightfully so.
I'm also co-host on the Planetos Podcast, and
hey.
you can find us over on YouTube under Planetos Podcast, Podbean, SoundCloud, iTunes. And I also have a theory on my Twitter profile too, if you want to check it out, as Zach was mentioning.
Yeah, it's great. If you're fiending for Winds of Winter content and theories, it's one of the best, I think, that's out there concerning Lady Stoneheart and what's going on in the Riverlands. As far as realistic, because every theory that I read, especially about Stoneheart, just ends up getting out there a little, just too much of like, it doesn't seem, but everything about Hyle Hunt and Jamie and all of it, it just makes a lot of sense. You're a smart cookie over there, Micah.
Thank you.
Thank you again for coming on and immediately making our show 1,000 times better than it's ever been before.
I'm glad you guys had me. I was totally willing. This chapter is among my favorites.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of good juice.
We've talked with a few other people, including Micah's co-hosts that we intend to have in the future. Now that we've got the first one on here, we can make some of those little announcements. We definitely hope you will come back, join us for another chapter, either hopefully in Storms, if not for Feasts and
Definitely. I definitely think we should do this again at some point. There's a lot of chapters coming up where I'll just be raising my hand.
Absolutely.
But I have opinions.
You have a blanket invite to the Brotherhood from this point on, because, of course, you are also an honorary inductee to the Brotherhood.
Correct.
So
thank you.
Whenever you wish to join us on this podcast, you are always, always welcome. And I think that about does it.
I think that's going to be it. And so, as always, we will go. Well, what are we reading next? I suppose.
What are we reading next? We're so
Catelyn.
excited.
Catelyn 4 or is it Catelyn 3?
Catelyn 3. Catelyn 3.
You know, you'd think we'd keep track of this.
Yeah,
stuff
you know,
since we're hosts here.
we do podcasts pretty regularly.
I'm pretty sure it's Catelyn 3.
I think you're right.
That would be Rickard Karstark, wouldn't it?
Exactly
Yes,
would.
it is. So, yeah, join us next time. Get your inductees for Catelyn 3, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Valor to Harris.
Peace.
Have a good night.